If you're not encountering new problems, you're definitely not growing. Hi and welcome to the Worship Cafe. This is Olan and this is a platform where I share my DIY thoughts and tips with budding worship leaders, singer-songwriters, home studio owners, and anybody with a creative flair. Today we're talking about new problems. New problems. It's impossible to do the same thing and expect a different result. We know that. So that means that the problems you're dealing with are the same problems you've dealt with last year, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever. You get the picture. The only way to encounter new problems is to attempt new things or to do things in a different order, a different way. So all I'm saying is to experience growth, you need to try new things. You need to say yes to obstacles or to challenges that come your way that even you don't have solutions for yet, because it's in overcommitting in this era of growth that you actually experience the growth. So Moses turns up and goes to Egypt to demand the freedom of his people. God says, "Let my people go." Now this was a very simple act, just as easy as taking candy from a baby, right? You just waltz in, you turn up and say, "Give me my people back," and that's it, job done. Don't forget, now the children of Israel had been in captivity for 400 years. They had been, in Egypt for 400 years, so it was time to go home. But they had to wait for the deliverer, which is Moses, the promised one. And when Moses turned up, it was as simple as just telling Pharaoh, and Pharaoh said, "Yes, let them take them, take them, take them." Of course, Pharaoh put up, a lot of resistance, and God had to show his mighty hand and the 10 plagues and all of the things that happened, and Pharaoh eventually let the people go. Now, you would have thought that was the end of the story, but along the line, when Moses was still contemplating, this is a 40-day journey into the wilderness to get to the promised land, and now they're stuck between Pharaoh's, chasing army and the Red Sea. And now they needed new solutions because guess what? They've grown. They were in captivity as slaves, and now they were in transition, so there was a period of growth. They had come out of slavery, but they were not quite yet in the promised land. So there was some period where they were like stuck in limbo, if you could use that expression, but God still showed up. But the thing is, that was a different problem they were experiencing now with the Red Sea and Pharaoh's charging army, which is different from what they experienced as slaves, not being exposed to anything except outside of or within the four walls of Egypt, I would imagine. So growth produced more problems, produce different problems. And much of life is like that. So imagine you're the promised one. You're Moses, and you've been sent to deliver whoever you've been sent to. So whether you're a singer-songwriter, you write songs to encourage people, encouraging them through this period that the world's going through a pandemic. You're encouraging people. You're singing prophetically over their lives. You're inspiring people. You're an author. You can write books that challenge people to be more than they've been. You're writing stories, creative stories for young children. You're building, that creative flair in them. They're forming these imaginative thoughts and pictures in their heads when they read the words you write. And it's brilliant. But you see, not everybody gets to a point where they believe that they're the one. Moses himself probably had an inkling that he was the one. He slew a man in his anger and fled. And we had to wait another 40 years for God to find him at the back corner of the wilderness and then bring him back to his place of call. But the truth is, for every time you want to make progress, you would expect to find newer problems. That's where I'm going with this. New problems now. So stick with me now. If you're not experiencing new problems in your business, in your side hustle, you're probably not growing. And I said, "Well, I've already got my systems. I do A, B, C, and it delivers D. That's fine. But maybe you need to go beyond A, B, C, and D. Maybe there's a W in the equation that you're yet to get to. And the only way you're going to get to that W, guess what, is to explore new things, explore newer ways, try new solutions, find out what's there that can make your journey a bit better. And sometimes when somebody comes to you and says, "Can you do this for me?" Don't just stop at, "Oh, I don't offer that now." Do it like my wise brothers from the East. They say, "I got it, but I've got it in my other warehouse. I'm going to get it. I've got it in my other warehouse and I'm going to get it." My brothers from the East, they know who I'm talking about. But you think that the truth is, newer problems, require new solutions. And that will force you to go out of your comfort zone to explore. So back to my scenario about new problems. What is a problem that you've been working on and recurring, if that's the only thing you've been doing, I want you to really do a soul searching right now. That's the only thing you've always had to deal with and nothing new. Very quickly, you can start to tell if your business is expanding or not. Big problems, big wins call for bigger problems. It said, new levels, new devils. That's another quote that I came across. New levels, new devils. No, how true, but there's some logic to that. So you're playing to an audience of 10 and you have this little guitar. You don't even need to amplify it. 10 people in a room, you can all hear the guitar. Now you have to play to 100 people. If you took your guitar and you played it in a hall where there's 100 people, they'd all have to sit still and be quiet to hear that guitar without it being amplified. Okay, smaller problems. Then you have to play that same guitar without amplification to 200 people. Definitely you need an amp of some sort. In fact, you need more than an amp. You need a PA system. You need all that speakers and all of that gadget. Now, the thing is, this is a big problem to have. A problem that you didn't have when you played to only 10 people. When you played to only 2 people. When you played those intimate gatherings, you didn't need that. Now, are you still talented? Yes. Are you still anointed? Yes. Are you still that songwriter who's inspired? Yes. But do you have a big problem now that you said yes to a gig that's bigger than you? Of course. The same thing out there. You're a DJ. You're just setting up an events DJ or an events planner. You've been planning events for 2 or 3 people, dining, maybe having a couples evening. Now they ask you to organize a couples evening or a couples event for your church, and they're expecting 100 people. They're expecting 200 people, and now it's like exploded your database of things to do, because now you have to keep 100 people engaged. It's different from keeping 2 people engaged. It's different from keeping 5 or 10 people. Now that's just the scale of it. It introduces its own logistical problems. So if you're not encountering new problems, it's a sign that you're not growing. And one of the things about nature is growth. Living things, every living thing grows. We used to have this acronym. I don't know if it's changed. When I was younger, it's this Mr. Niger D, and it's just the acronym that we put together for all the aspects or the things, essential things that every living thing does. One of the things that every living thing does is that it grows. So if your business is a going concern, it should be a going or a growing concern. If it's growing, you're going to survive. It needs to grow. It needs to be. It needs to express itself. It needs to become much more than it was when you started it. I used to make reference to this podcast because many times I'm looking back and I'm reviewing like the first and the second and the third episodes. I'm thinking, my goodness, you guys, please, if you haven't heard them, please don't bother. Don't go and listen, because trust me, I look back and I even cringe. I'm like, what was I thinking that I wanted to start a podcast? It was over before it began. It was over and done in all of 4 minutes. I thought I had a lot to say. Boom, 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 done. I was thinking, okay, slow down, brother. I thought you had more to say, but by the time I'd done episode 3, I was out of ideas. But look, 2 years down the line and we're still going. Sometimes you need to overcommit. Sometimes you need to say yes to the gig that you're not even ready for. Trust me, it sounds counterintuitive, but that's what faith means as well. Faith, we're people of faith. Faith means, calling that which isn't as though it is. Faith calls that is not yet manifest as though it is. And that's the sort of faith you and I need to be bringing to our business side, need to be bringing to our passions, need to be bringing to the going concerns that we are creating. It's a new mindset. Most of us have come from a background where you graduate, you get a job, you work that job for 20, 30 years, then you retire, and yada, yada, yada. I do get that formula. It works. But that's safe, okay? That's safe. Trust me when I say it's safe. It's safe because, we've got regular income. We've got monies coming in at, specific times of the week or the year of the month that keeps it going. And so we measure our progress against our peers. Say, that's Pierce, and that's David, and that's Shade, and that's Kunle, and we all earn about the same. I earn £5,000 more than they annually, so I'm good. But you're betting against other people who are on different, trajectories in life. You should be betting against yourself. Well, not betting, but, benchmarking against your own self. Are you supposed to be doing much more than what you're doing now instead of resting on your laurels? So you started that podcast. So you started that artistic enterprise. What are you doing beyond where you were 2 years ago? Yeah, it's been a whole new change to the way the world works now. Businesses are going online. They're getting ready, they're getting realigned since the pandemic, since the slowdown in the way people commute. All businesses are dependent on people moving around now. Even I've had a shock, whole shops, whole warehouses that are just stockpiled with materials that people may not even buy because if you're not going out, you don't need that many clothes. I haven't worn a suit. I think Sunday was the first time I wore a suit in a long time. I'm talking about 12 weeks now, which is ridiculously strange because I wear a suit at least 6 days out of 7. Yeah, in fact, 7 days out of 7. Monday to Friday, Saturday if I have a gig, and Sunday standard is in the choir. So you get my drift. So suit wearing has become that strange old thing that is just sort of passing away. So big brands are taking a hit. Smaller brands are taking a hit. Small businesses are taking a hit. I get it. But these are new problems. And this is an opportunity for growth. So what are you and I going to do about this? If your business or your ideas or your artistic expressions are not throwing up new and fresh challenges, there is a problem. You're probably not growing. This podcast will be right back.
Keep listening to The Worship Cafe. The Worship Cafe.
Welcome back. We're talking about newer problems. Now, one big particular newer problem that a business, a growing business should have is finding new customers. Finding new customers. Where do you go to find new customers for your very rapidly expanding business or retaining existing customers? Like, how hard you had to market, how hard you had to leverage to work to get the guys that you knew. You did a bunch of stuff free of charge for your friends and family. They became your organic marketers. They told friends who saw and liked what you'd done for them, and then those people referred you. And so recommendations came and you did your first paid gig, which is not a lot. Then the person came back, you did it again, and so you're getting confident, you're growing, the works are speaking for itself. And then that person stops coming. So you have to do all that legwork again just to get them in. That's the problem. So how do you first of all, keep the clientele you have? Because it's a very vast market. There's so much competition out there. You want to do something that makes you stand out. And how do you attract new customers? It's a big problem to have. It's a sign of growth. Because if you weren't growing, there'll be no need for customers. Yeah, part of what this pandemic is really exposed is even big business doesn't need big offices anymore. I mean, whole banks are now online, 100%. Whole banks are now delivering online, which is going to save a lot of overheads, but it's going to create new problems because what you do with these employees that you employ to staff this whole big buildings, which cost you a ton. You have all sorts of ancillary staff who are watching over these buildings, maintenance people, security people, CCTV, This is all kinds of things rolled into one. And where would these people go? If you own those buildings, you can hire those buildings out to businesses that still feel they need a place for meet and greet. But then, those staff have to justify their reason for being there. So it's all a balancing act, whether big business or small business. It's all a balancing act, but it's important that you keep on top of your why, because that determines what you spend money on in the long run. Or if advertising is your way of reaching your clientele, and you need to be thinking, where do I get the extra budget to advertise instead of just waiting for the organic crowd? I want to put my product and my services in front of people so people know that I do this. And then somebody might have the brainwave to say, actually, I need that service. I'm going to use this. I ask the question all the time. I said, if Google and Facebook and Coca-Cola and any of the big brand names that we know are still advertising, these big brands that we know, they're, household names, are still advertising, then who are you and me? Like, Joe Blogs that relatively nobody knows. Who are you and me not to advertise? Anyway, that's a topic for another day. But let's just focus on attracting new customers. It's a big problem to have. But as I said, it's a problem you only have if you are growing. So what are your action steps? What can you take away from all of this? Begin to explore newer ways to go about your creative idea. Explore newer crowds. Look for people to collaborate with, to get you out of your comfort zone. I don't do a lot of electronic music. Perhaps I should be looking for some EDM producers out there who are looking for fresh talent. I said, well, I'm not so fresh, but what can you do with this young man? What can you do with me? You know, what beats do you have that I can jump on? And if you write electronic music and you're looking to collaborate with people who do folk music or who play more live stuff, live sort of, expressions, then reach out. Send an email, send a text, call somebody, reach out to somebody who knows somebody, because that begins to solve the problem of this new emerging problem. Now, it sounds like I'm ranting, but please, I hope this becomes a trigger for you to take action. Take action. Inaction becomes, in the long run, one of the things that suffocates your creative idea. So many people are sitting on dreams, sitting on prophecies over their lives, sitting on business ideas, sitting on so many entrepreneurial ideas, but you're just too preoccupied with what you're doing right now that you're not seeing the big picture. You're doing yesterday's problems and fighting over yesterday's problems. What you need to do is look forward, look ahead. So you used to use one tool to do this job, and then have you explored what's out there? Perhaps it's in finding out the solution in a different tool that creates the opportunities for you to do a bit more. Okay, so you've been doing video editing on your phone, and that's brilliant. I've seen a lot of people do amazing things. I've seen phones, video phones that have been used to shoot entire movies. That's great. People have done that with the iPhone 6, iPhone 7, and they continue to do that because the iPhone's just getting better. I know that you can do that with any phone, but the tools are readily available, and some of them are free or at least cheapish. But then if that guy stops and rests on his laurels because he shot a movie on his iPhone and doesn't explore doing some more editing work in a fuller software like Final Cut Pro or Adobe Premiere or DaVinci Resolve, then he just loses out on the opportunity to do much more. Imagine if he had to crop and simulate a massive global choir of 25 people singing simultaneously. How do you do that on an iPhone? It's practically impossible. I'm not saying it's impossible, because impossible is a very relative word. Impossible, another word for impossible, another definition actually is it's just not been done yet. Okay? That's a very long explanation for one word. It's just not being done yet. Because 10 years from today, that technology might be available in a portable format. So what is it that you and I are missing out on because we are staying safe? I'd like to hear from you. This podcast will be right back.